Hello everyone, I'm Cole Smith and this is my museum presentation. So the museum I chose to go to is the Knoxville Art Museum because I'm from Knoxville, so I thought it'd be cool to check it out. I'd been before, but it had been a really long time. So when you first walk up to the building, you'll notice that it's very modern and it has like a very square looking exterior and it's very symmetrical. Even the landscaping, as you can see, is completely symmetrical. So when I went inside the museum, it's divided up into three levels, and the rooms are just kind of large white rooms, and they varied on how the art was displayed. But I'll get into that a little more later. Then there are a few smaller with rooms with like special exhibits. So the overall atmosphere of the museum, it was kind of casual in some areas and more formal in others. For example, like there's one exhibit that had like chairs around so you could sit down, kind of hang out with the art around you. And there are other exhibits where it was more formal, where uh, like a traditional art museum where you kind of walk around, check out each piece, and no flash photography or anything. But overall, there's a relaxed and casual feel to the museum. Oh, and here are some of the other artworks I saw in the museum that I thought I'd share. On the far left, it's a pretty interesting painting I found. It's kind of just like a room with some random objects inside, and then there's some interesting pottery, and then nice photograph of a beach there. But here's the actual artwork that I chose for my museum presentation. It's called Black Tip Shark, and it's by David Bates, and it's an oil painting on canvas that was created in 1989. And the actual dimensions of the painting is 96 by 78 inches. So I did some research to kind of figure out what the genre would be, and the best uh, category I found was is kind of considered naive art. So I had to look up a good definition for that. So the best definition I found is characterized by a childlike simplicity, and there's a frankness, and often there's an awkward relationship with the formal qualities of painting. For instance, ignoring the traditional three rules of perspective. You can kind of see that in this painting here because the proportions are weird. It's almost a little abstract, kind of. Um, and the painting itself, it'd be considered from like the contemporary or postmodern period and has a very contemporary stylistic approach for sure, I think. So the piece's function and intended audience is kind of difficult to know for sure what exact function it had and who exactly the piece is intended for because it wasn't like explicitly listed. But based on what I could tell, the artist David Bates, he found inspiration in portraying the relationship of humans to nature. That was one of his main inspirations. So this is something that he definitely accomplished in this piece. So I think it'd be safe to say that the function is to express this view, and the audience would be anyone who might appreciate looking at a portrayal of the human relationship to nature that's depicted in this piece. So the medium and techniques used in this piece was, well, first the medium was oil paints on canvas, and one article described the technique as late Cubist technique of modern fracturing. I found that in an article. But you can kind of see that in this piece here. It is very geometrical, like as far as the kind of the shapes the artist chose to draw the people and the land on. Uh, yeah, it's kind of abstract, some of the shapes. So here's the artist here. His name is David Bates, and he was born in 1952 in Dallas, Texas. And right now he's currently 71 years old. So his education and training. So his mother, she had studied art herself, so she wanted to teach him. So she took him to art classes at the Dallas Museum of Art. And he ended up studying at SMU in 1976, studied art, and some experience he got is he would go on vacation to the Texas Gulf Coast, which inspired many of his paintings. Like a lot of his scenes that he painted is from those vacations. So his employment, he did a lot of his work at Grassy Lake, which kind of became a studio in a sense. So Grassy Lake is a private hunting camp and nature preserve. It's in Arkansas, and he really just drew a lot of inspiration from the area and painted most of his works there. So the socioeconomic conditions that he had to deal with, um, the main one was the market was going through globalization. So this caused more global communication, and with global communication, it causes the economies to grow, especially in the West. So during this time, there was like a flourishing economy, which would obviously help fuel the art industry, and with a lot of money, there's more demand for art as well. So that's one socioeconomic condition. And a political condition, the main one was the fall of the Soviet Union and the end of the Cold War. So these events would definitely inspire the themes of art during this era, and it would also cause more communication across countries, which would allow art to flourish because now you have countries working together more. So some religious conditions during this time was New Age spirituality is pretty popular. So this movement kind of combined both like a Western and Eastern religious practices. It was really popular in the late 20th century. So because of it, a lot of art was centered around it during that time. So some unique contributions by David Bates is his folksy style that he's known for, and he also kind of has a cubist technique. And the main thing about David Bates is all his paintings, for the most part, is him translating his own personal experiences into art, and that's probably the most unique thing about him is all his paintings is are personal experiences, pretty much. Here's some other of his well-known works. So on the far left, we have Four Seasons, and then in the middle, we have Man with a Shell, and then on the far right, we have Cottonwood Branches. They're all pretty cool, unique pieces. So the subject matter of the piece I chose, as you can see, it's two fishermen on a coast with like an ocean view behind them. Uh, the first fisherman we see on the left, he's wearing blue pants, like black sandals, and a hat. He's holding two black tip sharks. Also has his reel kind of leaning up against him. And the other fisherman, kind of behind him back there, he's wearing a hat, a white shirt, and like khakis. He's also holding a bucket full of fish. So the lines in this piece, the first ones that I noticed were like major horizontal and vertical lines that kind of make up the landscape, like the structures are standing on and the ocean in the background. There's also a lot of contour lines that kind of form the people in the piece as well as the fish. The color in this piece is definitely a polychromatic piece with quite a few colors ranging from blues, browns, whites, and black. And I'd say the overall tone's kind of like it's kind of almost like an in between, but maybe on the darker side. There's also some contrast with the white and the ocean, as well as their clothes. You can see the dark blue and then the white where the waves are breaking. So there's a little bit of contrast there as well. So the texture of this piece, it's clearly a 2D painting. The surfaces portrayed on the scene, they look like they would feel rough in some areas, like the rocks, obviously. And there are other surfaces that look more smooth, like the people and the fish. And I'd say the water looks fairly realistic. It looks like if you were to touch it, it'd feel like water. So the space in this piece, definitely a lot of implied depth to show like how far apart the fishermen are. He kind of used like relative size and linear perspective to do this because the one fisherman's smaller and it's kind of elevated, so it looks like he's standing farther back. So the form in this piece, it is the actual painting is a rectangle that's 96 by 78 inches. I'd say it's representational, has exaggerated proportions. It's definitely an asymmetrical piece, and it's oil paint on canvas. So the reason I chose this piece, well, it initially attracted me because of the theme. Fishing is one of my favorite hobbies, so I personally found this piece to be very relatable, and I enjoy looking at it. Reminds me of some good memories, and also the exaggerated portions. It makes the piece more interesting and fun. Uh, just makes it more interesting to look at rather than if it was like a super realistic piece. So what I found inspiring about this piece was the creative choices that the artist made to portray this scene. He definitely could have made it like a more realistic portrayal, like I said, but he instead took a more like abstract approach. I found this to be inspiring because it made the painting more interesting and unique. So this piece engaged my mind in a lot of ways because the depth in this piece was really well done. Even though it's kind of unique, like with the proportions, you can clearly see what's going on in the piece and how far away everything is. I thought that was really well done. Um, Also, like I said, the unique proportions are really interesting. It's almost like something I'd imagine in a dream. So the personal value of this piece. So for me, it's definitely a valuable painting. This is primarily because it reminds me of my own personal experiences. Every time I look at it, I'm reminded of good memories that I have from fishing myself. So overall, my personal assessment is I really like and enjoy the piece. I think that David Bates is an extremely talented artist, and he definitely has a unique and beautiful style. His painting Blacktip Shark is really relatable to me, which is partly why I'm so fond of it. In addition, the colors and theme of this painting make it an incredibly enjoyable piece. So here are all my sources right here, and thank you for watching.